And this is a 3-minute timer, so we...
Good evening. My name is Chris Winter. I live at 3611 Stony Point Road. I have been drawn to the debate on marijuana tolerance in our community because of my personal experience on both sides of this issue. I am currently writing a book on the subject using my own knowledge gained over the past 21 years of healing from cannabis addiction. Proponents of marijuana legalization, or in this case passive and weak attitudes towards enforcement, have my empathy due to my active addiction to pot for over 17 years before 1991. Though today I resolutely stand with the opponents of marijuana legalization because my life without cannabis has been affirmed and greatly improved over these past 21 years of total abstinence from all drugs. I wish to stress your obligation as elected civic leaders charged with promoting the common good, that to pass this unwise and absurd resolution would certainly confuse and obscure the need for us to stand firm against all influences that threaten our families and our civility in general. In my opinion, now is one of those times to stand. From my own experience, I can say with conviction and honor that casual use of cannabis is an obfuscation of the real and insidious threat to all children, the hardest hit by this drug-disabling addiction.
Please respect other
treat
people's
speakers with
power.
respect, yes.
Yes.
Please treat our speakers with respect, and they'll treat you with the same.
Just stop the timer if you don't mind. Thank you. I'm going to try to find out where I'm at here. The hardest hit by this disabling drug addiction are the children of at-risk households. My background and upbringing fall into this latter category. I immediately became an addict to pot when I found out how well it helped me run from the pain of my childhood. I was 12 years old. Do you, as leaders of our community, wish to enable destructive and misleading behavior that will most certainly derail the future of our young and old people as my life was derailed? From my own life experience with cannabis and without cannabis, I can assure you, as few others can, you will promote and foster more misery and degradation in the lives of at-risk families if you vote yes for this deceit. My path in life was one of deceit and misery until I accepted my addiction to marijuana. Through literally years of self-realization, acceptance, and much prayer, I gratefully and humbly admitted the harm I caused my life and the lives of others around me. This self-realization and interchange could never have taken place while getting high. I have found the cycle of addiction is too powerful to permit a life based in rigorous honesty, which is one of the 3 traits needed to overcome addiction, the other 2 being open-mindedness and willingness. Living life on adult terms was impossible for me as I ran from mature responsibility through daily pot use. I emphasize these points to you because the proponents seek to minimize the causes and effects of marijuana addiction for their own selfish purposes. I know this because I was one of them myself. I was never interested in my community's good, only in my own want to get and stay high. I did not know or care how destructive my behavior was to my family and our free, civil, constitutional republic.
Thank you very much. Rob Turman.
Thank you all for this opportunity. To say that this drug, pot, is harmless and non-addictive is a sure sign of the self-centered deception I once lived. I behaved the very same way and said the same things when confronted with my drug problem by family members and loved ones. Denial is a common trait to all addicts, as it is rooted in the self-deception that I lived with on a daily basis. Lying to myself that I had no problem at all smoking pot as my life fell apart over and over. When I finally stopped lying to myself on February 10, 1991, I was able to receive the help I needed to heal from my addiction. If you promote this deception on our community, you will be joining and promoting the misery I once courted to the depth of utter despair. The pain and complications of my childhood stayed with me and were magnified as long as I had pot to run from negative realities that held me back. Only when its negative influence was totally removed could I heal and pursue true happiness and joy. I tell all of you on this council with truth on my side, this despair I talk of did not come from any other drug other than pot. When I first stopped getting high, I began to do the right things because I had to in order to heal. Now I do the right things because I want to. In order to live in a free society that hates tyranny, I have to care about my liberty and the liberty of my fellow citizens. In order to do this, we are instructed to basically be good people, be educated, and be involved in government. None of these traits were on my Christmas list when I was an addict. I wanted better connections, better drugs, and more money to buy drugs with. That was it. No concern for my fellow man or my form of government. None of it entered into my efforts at living. Alexis de Tocqueville warned us about tyrants usurping our freedoms by dulling our sensibilities for liberty, our aspirations toward goodness, our concern for the public good, and most of all, our civic duties founded in a strong sense of individual sovereignty. His writing on this subject of our democracy are still considered genius in political science 200 years after his groundbreaking book, Democracy in America. My take on this topic from his perspective is that loss of freedoms would be accomplished through social tolerance of behavior detrimental to morality and virtue. He understood the social and political degradation to our constitutional republic if the people were to become self-centered and self-serving. This is an accurate and precise description of me when I use pot on a daily basis to run from the negative aspects of my upbringing. My message to all on this council is clear. If you want our public to gradually and insidiously surrender their desire for personal sovereignty and interest in self-government, then by all means pass this deception you call a resolution. But if you wish to buttress our republic with the kind of human traits it is starved for, such as self-honesty, trust, courage, then send this resolution and those that support it packing. From my unique perspective, I consider this resolution an absurdity in the context of living in a free republic due to its threat to our families and our community.
Your time is finished. Anna Freshwater.
Good evening. Thank you, council people. Can you hear me? To be as strong as people with freedom, we have to remove...
Can you say your name and where you live?
Oh, sorry, Anna
Thanks.
Freshwater, Freshwater. To be as strong as people as freedom, we have to remove obstacles which inhibit human potential. I see the desire on our council when you support local youth programs in Charlottesville. How can you offer one hand in support of youth while literally backhanding them with this absurd suggestion? Only when I stopped the active addiction to marijuana did I ever succeed in any endeavor in my life. Pot steals away initiative, self-confidence, self-esteem, and self-worth. How, you ask? Through self-centeredness and self-deception. I could never allow myself to do good things or reach for my best abilities while I was aware on a deep level that I was lying to myself. My self-centeredness consistently kept me from reaching out to anyone. No, to pass this resolution would to be a mark of shame on the history of Charlottesville. From a recovering drug addict, fortunate enough to stand here, free of this drug, and who wishes no one to fall into the trap of addiction, think of Charlottesville and not of yourselves. In the countries of Europe that have legalized marijuana, the age of first use has been declining steadily. This can be expected in our community. So is it acceptable to you that 6- and 7-year-olds be soon using pot for the first time? At this time, I wish to share research from the Council from Europe. This behavioral science gives insight into the evidence that marijuana legalization, or even lax attitudes towards the same, correlates to early first use among children. I quote, "In conclusion, I stress my identification with drug addicts in our community and hope that they find the freedom and peace associated with overcoming as many complications of addiction as possible. While you, as a governing body, consider closely your duty to protect and to promote the public good, I may suggest to you focus your efforts on drug prevention, enforcement of state and federal drug laws, and above all, encourage drug addicts to stop using drugs. Please do not abandon them with such naive and destructive resolution. As a father and grateful member of a society, I humbly demand that you support our police department in sending a mature, caring, responsible message to our community. Illegal drug use, whether casual or habitual, is not a positive influence in Charlottesville. As a community, we ought to come together and eradicate addiction of pot, and we should never enable addicts as supporters of this resolution promotes."
Thank you. Connie Penn from Cedar Grove Road.
My name is Connie Perrin. I'm in Ruckersville, Virginia. And I have some studies that were done on the use of marijuana. There's a pediatric study that suggests that legal sanctions may influence the initial decision to use drugs, and that this influence diminishes as drug use by individuals progresses. I'd like to repeat that. The study suggests that legal sanctions may influence the initial decision to use drugs, and that this influence diminishes any drug use by individuals as drug use by individuals progresses. If so, it's the youngest adolescents, those who have not yet tried marijuana or are in the experimentation phase, who would be affected most by changes in marijuana laws. Age at first use is in turn a risk factor for problem use in the future. Parental use of marijuana in the last year is associated with their adolescence use during the same period. Some advocates for the legalization of marijuana argue that it is safer than alcohol. They suggest that increased use of marijuana by young people might have a positive effect if some adolescents switched from alcohol to marijuana, a substitution effect. This theory cannot be supported by recent studies on adolescent marijuana and alcohol use that incorporated the price of marijuana into the analysis. These studies conclude that an increase in use of marijuana by adolescents would result in an increased use of alcohol. For example, that the two drugs are economic complements. The most widely scrutinized large-scale change in the legal status of marijuana occurred in the Netherlands. Dutch policy regarding decriminalization is very complex. Use of illegal drugs per se is not punishable by law, but possession for use is. Drug dealing also is considered a felony. Theoretically, one can be imprisoned for up to 1 month for possession of 5 grams or less of cannabis, and promotion of marijuana through advertisements is forbidden also. From 1984 to 1996, the period during which Dutch prosecution of marijuana-related offenses became virtually non-existent, marijuana was increased consistently and substantially until 1992, while decreasing or remaining stable in other countries. Among 18 to 20-year-olds, the proportion who reported ever having used marijuana increased from 15 to 44%, and the proportion who reported using it within the previous 30 days increased from 8.5 to 18.5%. Use among adolescents in the United States decreased steadily from 1979 to 1992. In Norway, which also forbids the sale of marijuana, use remained constant until 1992 and then increased. Use remained steady or decreased in Spain, Stockholm, Hamburg, and Denmark during this period. These figures strongly suggest that marijuana use was influenced by changes in Dutch policy during this period. However, the United States and Norway also experienced increases. Thank you.
Thank you. Carol Thorpe.
Park that right there. Good evening, counselors. My name is Carol Thorpe. I reside on Oak Tree Lane, Charlottesville, and I speak this evening on my own behalf. I come to council tonight to ask you to refrain from adopting the resolution regarding marijuana. My reason for addressing you has nothing to do with whether marijuana use is a good or a bad thing, or whether or not it should be legalized. My concern is to ensure that council refrain from using our fine local police department as a tool to promote political agendas that you support or to fight those that you do not. I see no reason for you to issue such a resolution about the enforcement priority of existing marijuana laws, as supported by research done and presented to you by city staff. And I'm referring to the notes that were attached online to your agenda this evening. I presume you've read them. But in summary, your staff determined that in the calendar year 2011 in Charlottesville, possession of marijuana was charged 113 times, connected with a total of 5,040 arrests. By my rough math, that's less than 2.5%. They go on to say it is believed that the great majority of those charges are typically subordinate to another criminal charge, such as the discovery of marijuana would be a result of a search incident to arrest relative to some other primary offense. Within your staff's conclusion, they say, knowing this, meaning the totality of their statement, staff believes it is unnecessary to include a directive from council to deprioritize the enforcement of personal marijuana use. In my personal opinion, your staff is correct. As demonstrated by their own report, Chief Longo is an outstanding police commander and more than capable of prioritizing the amount of attention each criminal act should receive without the interjections of City Council. We have a seasoned professional at the helm of local law enforcement, and I suggest that you let him alone to do his job. So why then would you see a need to adopt such a resolution, except to appease certain members of your constituency in hope of making political gain? I find this situation reminiscent of the disastrous behavior of the previous incarnation of council during the Occupy Charlottesville encampment of Lee Park last October. Among many missteps by council, one was based on what City Manager Maurice Jones called, quote, the will of council, when he issued a directive of non-enforcement to Chief Longo to restrain him from upholding the park curfew and for 2 nights until a permit could be obtained. Whether the majority political orientation of our governing body is Democrat or Republican, progressive or conservative, I see a great danger in that body using the police department in any manner to promote its political agenda or to fight the opposite side. With great respect to this council, I strongly encourage you to keep, to keep this in mind as you conduct your duty to our community. Thank you.
Paul Long.